Loneliness is not just an emotion, it's a signal. A whisper from the depths of our humanity telling us that something vital is missing. It's easy to dismiss it or mask it with distractions, but ignoring it only amplifies its voice. At its core, loneliness is not about the absence of people, but the absence of connection, real, meaningful, soul-nourishing connection. We can be surrounded by crowds, immersed in bustling social circles, and still feel profoundly alone because what we're yearning for goes beyond physical presence. It's about being seen, understood, and valued. To understand loneliness, we must first understand its roots. Often it stems from the gaps between who we are and who we believe we should be. These gaps isolate us not just from others, but from ourselves. Sometimes we wear masks to hide our true selves, fearing rejection or judgment. But the more we conceal, the less visible we feel. It's a paradox. We crave connection, but sabotage it by withholding our authenticity. Loneliness thrives in these moments of hiding. There's also the cultural narrative around loneliness that complicates our relationship with it. We're taught to see it as a weakness, something to fix or avoid. Yet loneliness is a deeply human experience, one we all encounter at some point. Rather than treating it as an enemy, what if we saw it as a guide? A messenger urging us to pause and reevaluate how we're engaging with ourselves and the world around us. Sometimes loneliness is born from a lack of alignment with our environment. We might be in spaces where our values, needs, or voices don't feel acknowledged. In such cases, loneliness isn't just an emotion, it's a signal to change course, to seek places where we can genuinely belong. Understanding the root of loneliness requires courage. It asks us to sit with discomfort and listen to what it's telling us without judgment or shame. This is not about fixing ourselves, but about becoming curious. What unmet need is loneliness pointing to? What stories are we telling ourselves about why we feel this way? When we lean in with compassion, loneliness becomes less about isolation and more about the opportunity to reconnect first with ourselves and then with others. Understanding loneliness isn't a quick fix, it's a process. But the moment we start listening, we begin to transform it from a shadow into a guiding light, one that leads us toward the connection and belonging we all need to thrive. Cultivating self-awareness is the foundation for overcoming loneliness because it begins with understanding your own emotions, needs, and patterns. Often, loneliness feels like something that happens to us, an external force that isolates us. But in truth, it's deeply tied to our inner world. To navigate it, we must turn inward with curiosity, compassion, and courage. Self-awareness requires slowing down and paying attention to what's happening inside you. It's about recognizing the emotions that surface when you feel lonely, sadness, fear, shame, or even anger, and naming them without judgment. Loneliness often comes with stories we tell ourselves, narratives like "I don't belong, nobody cares about me," or "I'll always be alone." These stories are powerful because they can feel like absolute truths, but they're not. Self-awareness helps us identify these narratives for what they are: thoughts, not facts. When you begin to see them clearly, you create the space to challenge them. The practice of self-awareness also involves tuning into your body. Loneliness doesn't just live in the mind, it manifests physically. Maybe it feels like a tightness in your chest, a heaviness in your shoulders, or a hollow ache in your stomach. By noticing these sensations, you ground yourself in the present moment. This physical awareness can be a doorway to understanding what your body and soul are asking for: a deeper connection, rest, or even just the act of sitting with yourself in acceptance. Another key part of self-awareness is recognizing patterns. Are there specific situations that trigger your loneliness? Perhaps it's scrolling through social media and seeing curated images of people's lives that seem perfect and full. Or maybe it's when you're in a group setting but feel invisible or unheard. By identifying these triggers, you gain insight into what's driving your emotions and can begin to make conscious choices about how to respond. Self-awareness isn't about fixing yourself or erasing loneliness. It's about meeting yourself where you are with honesty and kindness. It's asking, what am I feeling right now, and what do I need in this moment? These simple yet profound questions can open the door to self-compassion and help you move from a place of disconnection to one of understanding. Building self-awareness takes practice and patience. It's not something you master overnight. It's a lifelong journey of learning to sit with yourself, even in the uncomfortable moments. But the more you cultivate it, the more equipped you become to face loneliness with strength and resilience. You begin to see it not as a void to fill, but as an invitation to reconnect with your own heart and ultimately with others. Building vulnerable connections is the bridge that moves us from isolation to belonging. Loneliness thrives in the spaces where we hide, where fear of rejection, judgment, or misunderstanding keeps us from showing up as our authentic selves. To overcome loneliness, we must dare to open ourselves to others, even when it feels risky. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage in action. It's the willingness to be seen, to admit I'm struggling, or to share what truly matters to you without the guarantee of how it will be received. The first step to building vulnerable connections is recognizing that connection isn't about perfection. It's not about having the right words or appearing strong all the time. It's about being real. When you let your guard down, you create space for others to do the same. Think about the relationships in your life. Are you holding back? Are there moments when you've wanted to say something honest but feared it might make you look foolish or needy? Those are often the very moments where vulnerability could deepen trust and intimacy. Vulnerability also requires intentionality. It's not about spilling your heart to everyone you meet. It's about choosing safe spaces and people who have earned the right to hear your story. Trust is built in small, consistent acts. Sharing a little piece of yourself, a fear, a hope, a struggle, and seeing how it's held by someone else is how connection grows. Over time, those shared moments of honesty create bonds that are not easily broken. Another important aspect of building vulnerable connections is learning to listen as much as you share. When someone opens up to you, they're offering a gift. Be fully present. Resist the urge to fix or dismiss their feelings, even if they make you uncomfortable. Simply listening and holding space for someone else's vulnerability is one of the most powerful ways to foster connection. It signals, I see you, I hear you. You're not alone. Of course, vulnerability doesn't come without risk. You might open up to someone who doesn't respond in the way you hoped. It's easy to retreat after such experiences, to tell yourself, this is why I don't share. But it's essential to remember that vulnerability is not about guaranteed outcomes, it's about being brave enough to try again. Connection is built through persistence, not perfection. In building vulnerable connections, you'll also discover that it's not just about reaching out to others, but allowing them to reach back. Sometimes we block connection without realizing it, brushing off compliments or downplaying our needs. Letting others care for you or acknowledge your worth is an act of vulnerability too. It's saying, I'm worthy of connection, even when that voice inside you doubts it. Ultimately, building vulnerable connections is about creating relationships where both you and the other person feel seen, valued, and supported. It's about understanding that while loneliness whispers lies of isolation, vulnerability speaks the truth of our shared humanity. When we lean into it, we discover that we are never truly alone. There is always the possibility of connection waiting to be nurtured. Fostering a community of belonging is about creating and seeking out spaces where you feel valued, accepted, and connected, not because of what you achieve or how you perform, but simply because of who you are. Our belonging is a fundamental human need. When we lack it, loneliness sets in, and we begin to question our worth and place in the world. But the beauty of belonging is that it can be cultivated. It's not about waiting for the right people to come along or hoping for inclusion. It's about intentionally building environments where connection can thrive. To foster a community of belonging, you first need to understand what belonging truly means. Belonging isn't about fitting in, it's about being yourself and feeling safe to do so. Fitting in requires us to mold ourselves into what others expect, often at the expense of our authenticity. Belonging, on the other hand, embraces our uniqueness and encourages us to show up fully. This means that fostering belonging starts with you. You have to embrace yourself, your strengths, flaws, and everything in between, because the more comfortable you are with yourself, the more space you create for others to be themselves. Creating a community of belonging also involves extending an invitation to others. Connection doesn't happen passively, it requires intentionality. Whether it's reaching out to someone new, organizing a gathering, or joining a group that aligns with your values, building a community means taking the first step. It's about being proactive and creating opportunities for shared experiences. A simple invitation to coffee, a book club, or even a casual walk can be the starting point for something meaningful. Belonging thrives in spaces where people feel seen and heard, so fostering it requires listening deeply and showing empathy. When someone shares their thoughts, fears, or joys, they are offering a part of themselves. Your role is to hold that space with respect and care. Ask questions, show interest, and make the person feel valued. When people feel genuinely heard, they begin to feel like they belong. Another crucial aspect of fostering belonging is cultivating a sense of shared purpose. Communities are strengthened when people come together around common values, goals, or passions. Whether it's a shared love of art, a commitment to social justice, or a common cultural heritage, finding something that unites you with others helps build bonds that go deeper than surface-level interactions. This shared purpose creates a sense of we turning a group of individuals into a community. It's also important to recognize that fostering belonging requires inclusivity. True belonging means creating space for diversity of thought, experience, and identity. This doesn't mean everyone has to agree or be the same. It means that differences are respected and celebrated rather than feared. Inclusion is the foundation of a thriving community because it ensures that everyone has a seat at the table. Finally, fostering a community of belonging involves consistency. Relationships and communities take time to grow. It's not just about one-off interactions, it's about showing up again and again. Trust builds with time, and so does the sense of safety that underpins belonging. Whether it's checking in with someone regularly, being present at events, or simply showing up for others in their moments of need, consistency is what turns acquaintances into a family. When you invest in fostering a community of belonging, you're not only combating loneliness for yourself, you're creating ripples that touch everyone around you. A community of belonging has the power to transform lives, offering the connection, support, and love that every human heart craves. In these spaces, loneliness loses its grip, and the beauty of connection takes its place. Practicing self-compassion is an essential step in overcoming loneliness because it challenges the harsh inner critic that often exacerbates feelings of isolation. When you feel lonely, it's easy to internalize the experience as a reflection of your worth, to believe that loneliness means something is inherently wrong with you. Self-compassion steps in as a powerful antidote to this destructive narrative, reminding you that your worth is not determined by external circumstances or relationships. At its core, self-compassion is about treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and care that you would offer to a close friend. Think about how you would respond to someone you love who is feeling lonely. You wouldn't berate them or dismiss their pain. You'd likely offer empathy, support, and reassurance. Practicing self-compassion means extending that same grace to yourself, especially in moments when you feel most vulnerable. To begin practicing self-compassion, you must first acknowledge your loneliness without judgment. Often we try to suppress or deny uncomfortable emotions, thinking that doing so will make them go away. But suppression only deepens the pain. Self-compassion invites you to say, this is hard and it's okay to feel this way. Naming your feelings and accepting them is not about wallowing in them, it's about honoring your humanity. Everyone experiences loneliness at some point. It's a shared human condition, not a personal failure. Another key aspect of self-compassion is learning to quiet the inner critic. That voice inside your head that says you're unlovable, you don't belong, or you're not enough is not speaking the truth. It's the voice of fear and insecurity, not reality. Practicing self-compassion means recognizing this voice for what it is and choosing not to believe it. Instead, replace those harsh judgments with affirming truths. I am worthy of love and connection. My feelings are valid. And I am doing the best I can. Self-compassion also involves taking intentional steps to care for yourself during moments of loneliness. This might mean engaging in soothing activities like taking a walk in nature, practicing mindfulness, or journaling your thoughts and feelings. These actions signal to yourself that you matter, that your well-being is a priority. It's not about fixing your loneliness in the moment, but about showing yourself that you're worth the effort to care. Importantly, self-compassion also involves reframing your perspective on loneliness itself. Instead of seeing it as something to fear or avoid, view it as an opportunity to deepen your relationship with yourself. Loneliness can be a doorway to self-discovery, a chance to explore who you are when all the distractions are stripped away. By approaching it with curiosity and compassion, you can transform it from an experience of isolation into one of growth. Practicing self-compassion takes time and consistency. It's not a quick fix, but a gradual process of building a new, healthier relationship with yourself. There will be moments when the inner critic feels louder than the compassionate voice you're trying to cultivate. And that's okay. Self-compassion is about progress, not perfection. Each small act of kindness you offer yourself strengthens your ability to face loneliness with resilience and grace. Ultimately, self-compassion is a reminder that you are worthy of love, starting with your own. When you treat yourself with care and understanding, you create a solid foundation for overcoming loneliness. From this foundation, you can reach out to others, build connections, and embrace the full spectrum of your human experience with courage and an open heart. Engaging in meaningful activities is a transformative way to address loneliness because it shifts your focus from what you lack to what you can create and contribute. Loneliness often feels like a void of space that seems impossible to fill, but meaningful activities remind us that we can choose how to spend our time and energy, even in moments of isolation. These activities are not about mere distraction, they're about connecting with a sense of purpose and fulfillment. When you engage in meaningful activities, you tap into your passions, values, and interests, which helps you reconnect with yourself. Loneliness can sometimes disconnect us not only from others, but also from our own identity. You might ask yourself, what lights me up? What have I always wanted to try? What makes me feel alive, whether it's painting, gardening, writing, cooking, or learning a new skill? Meaningful activities are a way to reignite your inner spark. Meaningful activities also provide a sense of accomplishment, which is vital in countering the feelings of inadequacy or stagnation that often accompany loneliness. Completing a project, mastering a new skill, or contributing to a cause reminds you of your abilities and reinforces your sense of self-worth. These moments of achievement, no matter how small, serve as building blocks for a stronger, more confident version of yourself. Another powerful aspect of meaningful activities is their ability to connect you to others in organic and fulfilling ways. When you pursue activities that resonate with your interests, you naturally align with like-minded individuals. Whether it's joining a book club, volunteering at a local shelter, or participating in a fitness class, these shared experiences foster authentic connections. Unlike forced social interactions, these connections emerge from a shared passion or purpose, making them more likely to be fulfilling and long-lasting. Meaningful activities also create opportunities for giving back, which is one of the most effective ways to combat loneliness. When you contribute to the well-being of others, you step out of the confines of your own struggles and into a space of empathy and generosity. Acts of service like mentoring, helping a neighbor, or supporting a cause help you see the impact you can have on the world, reinforcing your sense of belonging and significance. It's important to remember that meaningful activities don't have to be grand or time-consuming. Even small actions like tending to a plant, writing a letter to a friend, or spending time in meditation can have a profound effect on your sense of connection and purpose. The key is to choose activities that resonate with your values and bring you genuine joy rather than ones you feel obligated to do. Engaging in meaningful activities also helps you shift your perspective on loneliness. Instead of seeing it as an empty space to be filled, you begin to view it as a canvas, a chance to create something beautiful and enriching. This proactive approach empowers you, reminding you that you have agency in shaping your experience. Finally, meaningful activities anchor you in the present moment. Loneliness often pulls us into the past, replaying memories of loss or disconnection, or propels us into the future, worrying about what might never be. Engaging in activities that require your focus and attention, whether it's crafting, solving a puzzle, or playing music, grounds you in the here and now. This presence is a powerful antidote to the feelings of disconnection that loneliness brings. Through meaningful activities, you cultivate a life that feels rich and fulfilling, regardless of external circumstances. They remind you that your time and energy are valuable, and that even in the midst of loneliness, you have the power to create moments of joy, connection, and purpose. Challenging negative narratives is a crucial step in overcoming loneliness, because the stories we tell ourselves about our worth, relationships, and experiences shape how we see the world and ourselves. Loneliness often fuels an inner dialogue filled with self-doubt, fear, and shame. These narratives may whisper, "I'm not good enough, no one really cares about me," or "I'll always be alone, left unchallenged." They grow louder, reinforcing isolation and making it harder to reach out or connect. To break free, you must confront these narratives head-on with compassion and courage. The first step in challenging negative narratives is recognizing them. These stories are often so deeply ingrained that they feel like truth rather than perception. Start by noticing your thoughts when you feel lonely. Are you replaying past rejections, imagining future failures, or interpreting neutral events like someone not returning a text as a sign of unworthiness? Awareness is the first light that pierces through the fog of negativity. Once you've identified a negative narrative, pause and question its validity. Ask yourself, is this story true? What evidence supports this? And importantly, what evidence contradicts it? Often, you'll find that these narratives are built on assumptions rather than facts. For example, just because a friend hasn't reached out doesn't mean they don't care. They may be overwhelmed, busy, or even assuming that you're fine. By examining the evidence, you begin to see the holes in these destructive stories. Challenging negative narratives also involves reframing your perspective. Instead of seeing loneliness as a personal flaw or failure, recognize it as a universal experience. Everyone feels lonely at times, and it's not a reflection of your worth. When you reframe loneliness as a temporary state rather than an identity, you empower yourself to take steps toward connection rather than sinking deeper into isolation. It's equally important to replace negative narratives with more empowering ones. This doesn't mean ignoring reality or engaging in toxic positivity. It's about shifting from self-criticism to self-compassion. If your narrative says, "I'm unlovable," counter it with, "I am worthy of love and connection." Even if it's not present right now, if it says, "No one understands me," counter it with, "I haven't found the right person to share this with yet, but I will keep trying." These affirming truths don't erase loneliness, but they help you approach it with a mindset of possibility rather than defeat. Another way to challenge negative narratives is by taking small, intentional actions that contradict them. If your inner voice says, "No one wants to hear from me," prove it wrong by reaching out to a friend or joining a group activity. If it says, "I have nothing to offer," volunteer your time or share a skill with someone who needs it. Actions not only challenge the narrative, but also build evidence that counters it, gradually rewiring how you see yourself and your place in the world. Challenging negative narratives also requires patience and persistence. These stories didn't form overnight, and they won't dissolve instantly. Each time you catch yourself falling into an old pattern of thinking and consciously choose a different perspective, you're strengthening your ability to see the world and yourself more clearly and kindly. Finally, remember that you don't have to do this alone. Sometimes the negative narratives we carry are too heavy to untangle on our own. Reaching out to a trusted friend, mentor, or therapist can provide the external perspective and support needed to break free from the cycle of self-criticism. Sharing your struggles and hearing someone else's view can illuminate blind spots in your thinking and offer the empathy you need to heal. Challenging negative narratives isn't about pretending loneliness doesn't exist or masking pain with false positivity. It's about reclaiming the truth of who you are: worthy, capable, and deeply human. When you dismantle these harmful stories, you create space for new ones to emerge, stories that honor your resilience, celebrate your strengths, and remind you that connection and belonging are always within reach. Prioritizing consistent effort is essential in overcoming loneliness because meaningful change doesn't happen overnight. Loneliness can feel overwhelming, and the temptation to retreat or wait for someone else to bridge the gap is strong. However, the path to connection and fulfillment is paved with small, intentional steps taken regularly. Consistency is the thread that weaves these actions into lasting change, gradually transforming isolation into connection and despair into hope. Consistency begins with recognizing that progress, no matter how slow, is progress. When loneliness feels like a heavy weight, even the smallest effort can feel monumental. But those small actions, sending a text to a friend, attending a community event, or even stepping outside for fresh air, are the foundation for breaking the cycle of isolation. Each effort builds on the last, creating momentum that can carry you forward. To prioritize consistent effort, it's important to set realistic and achievable goals. Overcoming loneliness doesn't mean diving headfirst into large, intimidating social commitments. It might start with something as simple as smiling at a stranger, replying to a message, or making eye contact during a conversation. These micro actions, repeated over time, strengthen your confidence and reinforce the belief that connection is possible. Small steps, when taken consistently, lead to significant transformations. Consistency also requires patience with yourself. There will be days when loneliness feels insurmountable, and it's tempting to give up. But prioritizing effort means understanding that setbacks are a natural part of the process. Not every interaction will lead to a deep connection, and not every attempt will yield immediate results. What matters is your commitment to keep showing up, even when it's uncomfortable or when progress feels slow. It's in the repeated effort that growth happens. One of the most powerful aspects of consistent effort is that it nurtures resilience. Loneliness can often make us feel powerless, as if our circumstances are beyond our control. But when you take deliberate steps, no matter how small, you reclaim agency over your life. Consistency transforms effort into habit, and habits become the building blocks of a fulfilling life. Over time, the actions that once felt challenging or awkward become second nature, creating a sense of empowerment and stability. Consistency also fosters trust, both within yourself and with others. When you consistently show up for yourself, you send a message that you are worth the effort, that your well-being matters. This self-trust lays the foundation for deeper relationships with others. Similarly, when you consistently engage with others, whether by checking in, attending regular gatherings, or simply being present, you build trust within those relationships. People begin to see you as reliable, and that reliability strengthens the bonds of connection. An important part of prioritizing consistent effort is balancing persistence with self-care. Consistency doesn't mean exhausting yourself or forcing interactions when you're not ready. It's about finding a sustainable rhythm that allows you to grow without burnout. Listen to your needs and recognize when it's time to push yourself and when it's time to rest. True consistency is about maintaining effort over the long term, not sprinting toward an unrealistic goal. Lastly, consistent effort transforms your mindset. Each time you make a conscious choice to act, whether it's reaching out to someone, exploring a new hobby, or practicing self-compassion, you reinforce a narrative of hope and possibility. You begin to see yourself not as a passive recipient of loneliness, but as an active participant in your own journey toward connection and fulfillment. Prioritizing consistent effort is not just about overcoming loneliness, it's about building a life where connection, purpose, and joy are woven into the fabric of your days. It's a commitment to yourself and the belief that step by step, you can create a reality where loneliness no longer defines you. Overcoming loneliness is a journey that requires intentionality, courage, and consistent effort. It begins with understanding the root of loneliness, acknowledging it without judgment, and recognizing it as a shared human experience rather than a personal flaw. From there, cultivating self-awareness helps you identify the thoughts and behaviors that may contribute to isolation, enabling you to make conscious choices toward connection. Building vulnerable connections is essential. True relationships are formed when you allow yourself to be seen and create space for others to do the same. Fostering a sense of belonging within a community further strengthens these connections, offering a deeper, more enduring sense of support and shared purpose. Along the way, self-compassion becomes your anchor, helping you navigate the inner critic and treat yourself with kindness during moments of struggle. Engaging in meaningful activities transforms loneliness into an opportunity for growth and creativity, while challenging negative narratives reshapes your perspective on yourself and the world. By confronting and reframing limiting beliefs, you open the door to new possibilities for connection and fulfillment. Lastly, prioritizing consistent effort, taking small, deliberate steps toward connection every day ensures that progress, even when slow, becomes sustainable and transformative. Loneliness may feel like an insurmountable barrier, but it is not a permanent state. Through self-awareness, vulnerability, compassion, and persistence, you can reclaim your sense of worth, deepen your relationships, and build a life where connection and belonging are not just aspirations but realities.